Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly. On this episode, I'm joined by Chris Hanson. You may know Chris from his short film, The Day I Disremembered. Chris shares his fly fishing journey, and we talk a little brown liquor and barbecue. I think you're really going to enjoy this one. But before we get to the interview, just a couple of housekeeping items. If you like the podcast, please tell a friend, and please subscribe and leave us a rating and review in the podcatcher of your choice. It really helps us out. And I just returned from IFTD in Salt Lake City. It was great to see so many old friends and to make new ones. I got to spend some time with my buddy Phil Montano of Artisan Angler. If you're looking for a better way to organize your flies, tippet, and tools, you should check out the fly trap at artisananglerllc.com. I've dropped the link in the show notes. Phil sells direct through Amazon, so you get prime shipping and free returns. It doesn't get any easier than that. Make your time on the water more productive and check out the fly trap today. Now, on to our interview. Well, Chris, welcome to the Articulate Fly.
Thanks so much, Marvin. I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to our conversation, and we have a tradition on the Articulate Fly. We always ask all of our guests to share their earliest fishing memory.
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. I think probably the earliest, which is kind of weird because I live in Colorado now. We've been here for, I think, maybe around 10, 11, 12 years. And I think my earliest memory is actually spin fishing with my biological grandparents in Colorado, visiting from Minnesota, because I was born and raised in Minnesota. So, yeah, I think that's the earliest. On a lake, fishing for rainbow trout, and I can't tell you, I think I caught something. I remember playing around with an axe and almost cutting my toe off, but that's my earliest memory.
Well, there you go. So when did you come to the dark side of fly fishing?
You know, it wasn't that long ago. It was my birthday, June 2016.
That's pretty impressive because you've made a movie, you host trips. I see you on Instagram. You got all kinds of ambassador stuff. You know, who are some of the people that have mentored you on your fly fishing journey to help you grow as an angler so quickly?
My mentors, you know, when I first got in, and actually even today, you know, I fly fish all the time. I'm definitely a student of fly fishing and always learning, but the people that really I learned so much from and I continue to are John Easton in Colorado here, Pat Dorsey, Matt McCannell, and Landon Mayer. Those guys I've learned, I mean, kind of spoiled, right? Like some of the best in the industry, and I've learned so much and continue to learn so much from them.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's funny too, because people fly fish for different reasons. Why do you fly fish, Chris?
Well, for me, it's interesting because I've always had an attraction to rivers. Way before fly fishing, was never much of a spin fisherman. And there's something about the moving water, the sound. And so that is a big part of it. But really it's, you know, getting out away from everything, relaxing. Most of the places I fish in Colorado, there's not cell phone reception. So it really forces me to, you know, just enjoy the day and focus on being out and being away from, you know, stress. And it gives me time to think about things I didn't have time to think about. And, you know, it actually kind of reminds me of racing sled dogs like years ago when I did that, some of the solitude and just, you know, clear mind and not a lot of noise and sound going on.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because lack of cell phone reception was one of the main reasons that I started fly fishing in Montana.
Yeah. I mean, thank goodness for me, because you know, I mean, I'll be the first to admit if I had reception, it would not be enjoyable because I would be tending to emails and everything else.
Yeah, I used to work for a large law firm, and they just couldn't leave you alone. And you know, if I had told them that I was on the moon, I couldn't have had more solitude.
Right.
But it's interesting too, right? Because really kind of, much of your journey to fly fishing is distilled in your film from last year, The Day I Disremembered. You want to tell us a little bit about the movie?
Yeah. So, it's really, when you ask me, why do I fly fish? It's really how I got started into fly fishing and really what I needed. I was, we were on vacation and, we were packing up to leave, and I started asking my wife some odd questions. What I remember is just the part about asking about the balcony at the hotel we were at. It overlooked the ocean. And I said, we should have had breakfast out here, and, we should have spent time out here, have dinner. And she said, we've had breakfast out here. We ate breakfast here this morning. And I said, wow, I don't want to worry you, honey, but I don't remember any of that. And so that kind of started on this crazy ordeal of hospital. My wife thought I was having a stroke, and it turned out I had what they call transient global amnesia. And so it's kind of bizarre because even every time I talk about it, I don't know what it is, but it just kind of stirs me up, and it's kind of a heavy thing to think about, which is weird, but it's just the effect, it has. And so, ultimately really what it was, the doctor said, you have, stress in your life. Yes. Do you work all the time? Do you have migraines? Yes. And so I kind of had these different things that were common threads of people that have been affected by this. And so they really said, you have to reduce your stress. You have to figure out something to do to get you away from work, something to relax you. And that's how fly fishing came in. We got home, and I didn't change a thing and just kept working like I always do. And my wife said, you can't keep doing this. And we had talked about fly fishing because we were in Colorado, and thought, it looks fun. And she booked a guided trip for me on my birthday, and that's what started this obsession, I guess you could say, but something that was really needed in my life.
Yeah, really neat. But, you need to reduce your stress. So you're like, well, I'll take up fly fishing, but then I want to make a movie about my experience. Right. Right.
Right.
So what made you decide that you wanted to make a short film kind of sharing your journey to fly fishing?
Wow. I have, and I think for people that have been around me, communicated with me, they know this. I'm an extreme introvert extrovert, because of my job. And I really, truly enjoy working with clients, and I'm in my element. But it probably takes me more energy because it's not natural for me. And so I don't have this introvert side. And I mention that because making the film, it was like the same thing, which is, it'd be great to tell my story. I don't know that I necessarily thought it would help people. But I think, I definitely thought, people could relate to it. And probably the main reason is I have been trying to write a memoir of sorts, and was a struggle. And so the film kind of gave me this opportunity to go, I could tell a little bit about my life. I touch on those things, talk about transient global amnesia and how I got into fly fishing. And so then kind of started this whole idea of deciding to do it.
Yeah, very neat. What's it like to see your life's journey distilled into a short film and have it projected up on the big screen? Because I talk about some serious things, it's pretty overwhelming, actually. Yeah, it's
I'm definitely proud of it too. You know, I watch it and I think it's pretty surreal.
Yeah, absolutely. And, in the whole movie making process, what was kind of the greatest challenge or greatest surprise?
Definitely it was deciding, as I started to write the script, so to speak, of what I wanted to talk about, it was about transient global amnesia and fly fishing, but I felt like I needed to tell this story leading up to it. And then it was this struggle of, as I'm putting it to paper, I'm like, why am I telling people this? This is too personal, or should I really, talk about this? And to the point where I, a couple times was just like, I don't know where I'm going with this thing. It's too much. And I was going to stop. And then I thought, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to, lay it out there and tell my story. And so, that was, definitely a challenge that once I got past, and it was like, okay, I'm doing this.
Yeah, got it. And so you kind of worked on the script and storyboard. Tell us a little bit about how you found your videographers.
Yeah, so the one, Rob Herman, he's a photographer, videographer here, amazing, really talented. And I had told him just about transient global amnesia, and I wanted to do this film, and talk about somebody who asked me over and over for the script and what this was about, so he could get the correct shots and B-roll and everything. And I kept telling him over and over, yeah, I'll get it to you, no problem. And we had these outings planned, and I don't know how he pulled it off, but he captured everything, and he literally didn't know any of the details besides those two things. And so that was amazing. And then Tim, who did the editing, was he's the one who really made the film what it is, and pulled together those shots. And my brother did the interview sections. So he just did an awesome job of making me feel comfortable. My wife, Bobby Jo, she's in it, and just kind of really, getting that real, comfortable place to talk about some of the different things I talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And how many days did it take you to shoot the video?
Let's see. The interview spots were kind of like two to three times to get together to film, but I had really worked on what I wanted to talk about. And then the video that Rob did was like a Deckers outing on the South Platte. I think a couple in Cheeseman Canyon, and then one over on the Uncompadre. Well, that was actually 2 or 3 days of shooting on the Uncompadre all at once.
Yeah, it's always amazing to me how many hours of film you need to produce like a 15 or 20 minute short.
Yeah, so much video, and especially for a guy that didn't know what it was going to be about. And then, the hours involved in that, and then the editing process of looking through. Of course, I helped look through some of the video and kind of pointed Tim to, hey, what about this and what about that? But he also kind of turned things upside down, so to speak, where he said, how about in your script, and instead of starting with this, we start with this, and then let's put this over here. And it was, that was a fun process.
Yeah, very neat. And, so, obviously it was personally challenging from a telling the story part and then kind of the execution part, but kind of what did you learn about yourself going through the whole process?
What did I learn? Probably that it's okay to, I think, it's okay to, talk about these things, fly fishing and guys, not just guys. I mean, fly fishing in general can be pretty ego driven and, about the big fish and how good you are and, all this kind of stuff. And I think to talk about something that, serious. And what really surprised me is like all of the messages, and mostly from Instagram, but mostly from Instagram, and people texting me that, knew my phone number and saying, like, telling me these stories of a relative or a friend or themselves of what they went through, like some stuff where you're just like, wow. I mean, and they're telling me all this. And so that was such a cool part of it.
Yeah, I think it's always, it's really challenging to be vulnerable that way, but then it's always amazing to see kind of what gets reflected back to you.
Yes. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. And so, you've done a movie, you're kind of working on a memoir. You have any more movies in your future?
Definitely. You asked, I guess, now that I think about it, what did I learn about myself? I learned, I want to do, I don't think of myself as, creating films, but I was like, I really enjoyed this process. I want to do this. And so I have 2 right now that I'm working on about other people. And my goal is to hopefully do 1 to 2 a year, and they're going to be about why people fly fish, more than, all, kind of the main reasons we fly fish, which people don't have to have. There's a deeper meaning, but there's a lot of people that do. They do have a deeper meaning. They do have a very serious part of it and how they got into fly fishing and overcoming some incredible things. And so I want to tell other people's stories and have them share, what fly fishing means to them.
Interesting. And is that because of how you came to fly fishing, or have you always had a part of you that liked to tell stories?
I think mainly because of the process, with this, but the memoir thing started before that because I've had a lot of unique, I've had a unique upbringing and things that I've done. And when I would talk to friends and people I'd meet, and the conversation felt comfortable enough to start talking about these things, people find it interesting. And so there's that part of wanting to share that, and then going through the film, and all these like outpouring of people telling me, how they can relate to it or why they fly fish because of this traumatic thing that happened to them. I was just like, this would really be fun to tell people's stories.
Yeah, and to kind of follow up on that, if for folks that haven't watched the film, they need to watch the film. But once you do it, one thing that jumped out at me is that, you're a pretty tough and resilient guy. And I wanted to ask you, where does that perseverance in the face of adversity come from for you?
Oh, wow. I don't, thank you. I don't know that, I would say I was tough. I think the perseverance, I've always, from as long as I can remember, have been a all or nothing person, and fly fishing is one of them. Like you're saying, wow, you just started fly fishing, and by no means do I think, and I know I'm not anybody special within fly fishing. I'm learning, but like, I fly fish all the time, and just learning to be a student of fly fishing and learning from people. And I've always been that way. Work, when I got into sled dogs years ago. And I think there's I don't have a chip on my shoulder. I definitely don't, but there's a part of me that, probably is always having something to prove. And I think that probably can be from, dropping out of school, getting my GED, got my GED later, but talking with people and, not being around people and kind of judging because of your career path or education. And I think probably because my biological father's, still out there and, whatever. I mean, I'm 51 now, so it's, I'm kind of past it, I guess, but maybe just, having that, little bit of something to prove. But I think part of it is just what you go through. I mean, I don't think I can take credit for a lot of it. I think it's things that I've gone through, and for some reason, I'm very blessed that, I've been able to, kind of move past it, so to speak. I didn't talk about it in the film, but my older sister, who I'm not in contact with, biological sister, I mean, she's had a tough road, tough life, and we went through, the same thing and some other things I, don't talk about in the film. And so I don't know that I can really take credit for it as much as just, having this drive that has always been there with me.
Yeah. And I mean, and kind of maybe is in an odd way, is it also that, the more adversity you overcome, the more confident you are that you can overcome future adversity?
Yeah, that's probably a good point. Probably the truth is, I don't, I don't look at a lot of things as things, how am I going to do this type of thing, but just having the, we're going to do this, we're going to get through it. And so, I look at my life and go, I wouldn't change anything. The only thing I would change is I wish I had memories of my biological mother, and I wish I had a relationship with her. But beyond that, I really don't have any regrets, because all of those things I know, for good and bad, make me who I am today.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you were talking about this in a little bit different way earlier in the interview, about having one speed and working too much. And, persevering and being resilient takes a lot of energy. And so, how do you sustain that energy so that you can continue to be resilient?
I think that's the good and the bad, where fly fishing has made it so that when I go fly fishing now and I go back to work, I'm so much more refocused and energized than before, which is, kind of a constant, weight. And it just, I just have one speed, and that's, just really going after it and continuing after it. And I don't really know. I think, when you ask how and the energy and stuff, so I typically, my migraines are not a regular monthly thing. I typically get a migraine a handful of times a year, and they put me down for a day. They typically 2 a.m. I wake up. I start feeling it before then, but 2 a.m. and I'm out until 4 p.m. the next day. Incredible pain, nauseous, horrible. And I know that every time leading up to that is really because of my stress, lack of sleep, those kind of things, and my body just saying enough is enough. And so fly fishing has kind of helped that a little, but I still have those. So I don't know that I manage my work and perseverance that well. It's just, how I'm made up. And I actually, one more thing, I think I'm a big goal setter. And before I knew what setting goals were, I just naturally had these ideas of what I wanted to do and accomplish. And then later in life, when I heard about goal setting and, writing it down, planning it out, I'm very much that way. And I think that's what, really helps me accomplish and continue to, work through the different things of what I'm trying to do in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can remember too, I was thinking back as I was preparing for the interview about the conversation we had a couple weeks ago. And, one of the things that came out of that is I could really tell that you were a people first person. And then that was kind of your approach. And I was kind of curious about, where that came from. And similarly to the perseverance and resilience question, how are you able to maintain that approach? Because at least I can speak for myself. I sometimes find that challenging to do when there's a lot of stress and stuff has to get done.
Yes. It's funny because I took one of those personality tests for this big job I took in Texas when we first moved out of Minnesota, being a e-commerce director of this automotive dealership. And that was one of the managers, and I took this test, and this lady's like, I've never seen anyone score totally opposite in things. And she's like, for you, sales and people, it's going to take a lot of energy for you, and, you're probably more suited for something else. And I took offense to that because I built my career into getting this offer and out there. And it took me a few years later to understand the energy where it didn't come natural to me, even though it was natural to take care of people and to really do what I say I'm going to do and caring about what I'm doing for them. But the talking and, the personal interaction is more draining for me because I'm not, this people person driven. But I think ultimately the answer is the things that I've gone through. I think some people could be the opposite, where because of things that happen in their life, then they, feel like they don't want to, they don't care about people let them down. Where for me, I was adopted and lots of other great things, that happen, where I care about what I do, and honesty and integrity, and really wanting to help people. And it's just something that I've had for as long as I can remember. I mean, I've obviously made bad decisions along the way like anybody else, but, for me, even in, working in, my company now, I've never been money motivated. It's all been about, goals that I wanted to achieve and helping people and, following through with what I say. And that part of it means, a lot to me. And I don't know, maybe a bit of acceptance, of, being someone, that they can count on.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you're answering the question, it made me think about when you were talking about having conversations with your colleagues about, giving difficult clients stuff that they maybe didn't even pay for because they really needed it to be successful.
Yes. Yeah, I've at work, like anytime, employees, things that come up and, hey, what should we do with this situation? And they've gone through enough of it where they know I'm going to say, what's the right thing to do? What should we do? Sure, this, and that, but what should we do? What's the right thing to do? And we kind of always follow that. And then they know, they're more comfortable. They know what to do. And, we don't do it because of that, but it's interesting how many clients have canceled and then called us back up a few months later, a year later, and said, hey, we want to work with you again. This other company, it wasn't what we thought it would be.
Yeah. Well, and shifting gears a little bit on a much, much lighter note, the rumor has it, Chris, that you like bourbon and barbecue.
Yes, very much so.
So I have to ask you, being a Southerner, what is your favorite bourbon?
So that's a tough one. If anyone for those who've seen my secret hidden bourbon fly fishing room, they know I have quite a few. I don't think I could say what's my favorite, but I will say that the two that I am really into right now is 291 out of Colorado Springs. And not just because they're in the Colorado Springs, they've actually been winning some awards. All their bourbon is finished in Aspen, which is really different. They use Aspen staves to finish it, and I'm a big bourbon and rye, and then Driftless Glen out of Wisconsin. Their whole lineup. Those are kind of the two that I'm really into right now, but I love, a lot of the, Kentucky bourbons, you name it. Although I don't chase, unicorn, I don't,
Yeah. So that means no Pappy.
Yeah. So speaking of Pappies, like last year, on my hosted trip, a guy brought a bottle, and it's awesome. Like it lives up to its name. But that being said, I honestly can say, like when you drink, like this was the 12-year. I mean, I think it retails for $60 retail. You can't buy for that. That's what it is. I mean, it's a $60 to $80 bottle. I kind of look at that for numbers. So it's amazing. It's good.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to think. And do you like yours neat, or do you like it with a little bit of ice?
I drink all mine neat. I do like cocktails, so I do, mix old fashions, Manhattans. I smoke some of it. I mean, I love making really good handcrafted cocktails, but if I'm not doing that, I drink everything neat.
Yeah.
Some of the higher proof, I might put a couple 3-4 drops of water. But yeah, I love drinking it neat.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to try some of that while we're together in Salt Lake City, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah. And
definitely.
And then of course you like barbecue. What's your favorite style of barbecue?
So I barbecue and smoke, myself and do a lot of it. And so I honestly can say I like all the different types of barbecue, and I can appreciate them. I tend to, for instance, like when I smoke ribs, I do like this, dry. I don't cover them with barbecue sauce. So I'm typically somebody that likes to have it without barbecue sauce, and I add a little bit as I need or want. I don't really, smother things. But when I go to different areas in Texas and North Carolina, like I can really enjoy and appreciate each style of barbecue across the country.
Yeah, I will confess I'm an Eastern North Carolina barbecue person. So
Okay.
that's a family from that part of the world. And even after a brief tour of duty in Texas, we almost got in a couple fights talking about what was and wasn't barbecue. So
That's funny.
yeah,
You'd think I'd be more opinionated about it, but I'm not trying to appease everybody. I do like all the different kinds.
yeah. And so we talked about this a little bit earlier too. So you're running hosted trips. You want to tell folks? I know your current one's full, but you want to tell folks about kind of what you generally do and what the program is.
Yeah. And it's interesting how that all came about too. It was really about being invited up to Alaska to this lodge through a friend of mine who I met through social media. That was a consultant, and that's how I ended up there. Went with my brother, hit it off with the owner, who, after I started doing hosted trips, he started asking me more about my company and what we do. And so he's actually a client now and really a close friend, Bob. He's a great guy. But anyways, the hosted trip. So that's kind of how that came about, is I thought I'd love to do a hosted trip. What do you think about that, Bob? Would that be okay? He goes, if you want to do that, anything you want to do, just let me know how. So we started talking about it. And so there's a June one, which really kind of started because June is slower. So he's like, think you could put something together for that? And I'm like, well, what can we do? He's like, you don't even know. Like, there's so much you can do in June up here. And the weather is the most consistent for flying than any of the months. And so I said, okay. So we do a June trip where we go, everything's on the fly. We fish for lake trout, big pike. We fly out to those in a beaver, land in these remote areas, grayling, Arctic char, dolly varden, and rainbow trout. And last year, some sockeye salmon. And so it's fun because it's different techniques, different fish, flies, and you're catching all these different species. And we do a drift trip and then flying out to places, and it's just a lot of fun, and it gives somebody an experience, I think, beyond what the typical thing you're thinking of with Alaska. Go for the salmon and grayling, of course, people know about. So to catch these other species, it's so much fun. And then the September trip is really all about silver salmon and chasing those and flying out to these silver salmon that are coming in from the ocean, and they're just like rockets. So that's fun. But we also drift trip, rainbows, dolly varden, char. We're still going after several different species, and so it's a lot of fun. Same lodge up in Alaska, Saldotten area.
Yeah, very, very neat. And do you have any other kind of upcoming events or projects you want to share with our listeners?
Let's see. Really, it's those two other films I'm working on, and no, I think that's. I think so. I guess the other thing is, for anybody listening that has watched my film, or maybe they are going to after the podcast, and they would like to share their story. I'd love for that to be one of my upcoming projects that I do as well. And then, that'd be great.
Yeah, and then what's the best way for folks to reach out to you if they have something they want to share like that?
I would say two different ways. I mean, Instagram, I reply to everybody. So if someone, goes to Chris J. Hanson, that's my Instagram. It's also my website, chrisjhanson.com. So you could reach out to me via Instagram or go to chrisjhanson.com. It's Hanson, by the way. And I think I have a contact form on there.
Yeah, and I'll drop all that stuff in the show notes. And where's the best place for folks to check out The Day I Disremembered?
If they go to YouTube and search for The Day I Disremembered, that pops up. that film. It is on my Chris J. Hanson website, but if you search it in YouTube, it pops up. So it's,
Yeah. And I'll drop that in the show notes too. And, Chris, are there any other kind of flavors of, social media that you want to share with folks? I think you've covered it all, but I want to give you one last shot at it before I let you go this evening.
I'm really not that active on Facebook. I do have it connected, but Instagram is really the main social media platform that I use and post regular on my fishing outings and adventures I'm going on. And for people that follow me and have already looked at posts and stuff, I do from time to time share some other thoughts beyond just catching fish and kind of how it relates to life and everything. So
yeah. And I guess too, you've got a great page on your personal website. If people want to go and look at kind of your digital media company's work and fly fishing, they can check that out there too, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. 3G engagement. We do a lot of fly fishing guides and shops and work with that. That really was spawned just from my passion for fly fishing. And so I wanted to, if I thought I could help shops and guides, with more business online and generating more business and sales that have a lot to offer. And that's really kind of how even that client base grew outside of my automotive, restaurant, and other types of businesses that we typically work with.
Very cool. I'm going to drop all that stuff in the show notes. And Chris, I really appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your evening to chat with me.
Oh, thank you, Marvin. It was fun visiting with you, and really appreciate you inviting me.
Absolutely, and I look forward to seeing you next week in Salt Lake City. Take care.
Likewise. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Again, if you like the podcast, please tell a friend, and please subscribe and leave us a rating and review in the podcatcher of your choice. Tight lines, everybody.